Reports from the front line in Ukraine describe frequent attacks of Ukrainian drones destroying or damaging Russian tanks, artillery vehicles, and buildings, while Russia has been relatively unsuccessful in its counterattacks against Ukrainian armored vehicles. Here's how Ukrainian forces crush Russia's armored vehicles like hammers crush eggs. While Russia has had more armor and greater munitions resources since the start of the war, Ukraine is winning the innovation game. Its coordinated deployment of sophisticated drone and tank technology is crushing Russian armor and giving Ukraine the upper hand in the conflict, at least for now. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, it was the most violent seizure of European sovereign territory since World War II. Russia planned a multi-axis invasion, launching attacks from the north, east and south with the intention of overwhelming Ukraine with speed and shock. Within this plan, Russia's core offensive tactical units were battalion tactical groups or BTGs, which are self-contained combined arms formations built around a tank or self-propelled artillery vehicle with its own support, designed for rapid and independent action. The presence of large number of tanks was meant to create an overwhelming psychological effect and demoralize Ukrainian forces, and they were meant to provide the munitions to allow advancing infantry to seize and hold critical infrastructure and urban centers. The BTGs did not end up being fit for purpose, with rapid advances outstripping logistical support capabilities, leaving tanks without an adequate infantry screen and necessary fuel and munitions, making them vulnerable to attacks. Ukraine has been particularly effective at targeting these Russian tanks and other armored vehicles and structures thanks to its development of sophisticated drone warfare technology and tactics. While drones have been used in warfare for decades, Ukraine has integrated drones into armed forces in a way not seen before. They've been transformed from expensive kit performing specialized functions to one of the most important and widely used weapons on the battlefield. While the deployment of small drones was inconsistent at the start of the war, almost every Ukrainian fighting brigade now has multiple unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, with some used for reconnaissance and others for assaults. Reconnaissance drones are equipped with high-spec cameras that transmit real-time video back to operators, allowing them to look for the enemy from above. Short-range drones like the Chinese-made Mavic, which is a quadcopter used by civilians all over the world, can fly up to 300 meters and cost roughly between $1,500 to $3,000 each. Long-range drones like the Shark can fly for more than 260 miles and can cost thousands of dollars. Once the drones find a target, such as tanks or troops, the operators relay the coordinates to their commanders. Commanders then decide if and how to strike an identified target. At that time, due to limited munitions resources, commanders must then decide on the value of a target before ordering a strike. Commanders can choose to launch munitions from their self-propelled artillery, which pack a heavy punch and are most likely to destroy an armored target. But they can also launch cheap first-person view or FVP drones with explosive warheads secured with cable ties that cost around $500 to produce and are therefore suitable for kamikaze attacks, since they'll almost always be destroyed in the operations. Drones directed by a pilot are far more accurate when seeking out targets and can seek out vulnerabilities such as open hatches. However, their small size means they pack a much less powerful warhead. They usually have a warhead of 1 to 2 kilograms packed with shrapnel to maximize impact. Consequently, it can sometimes take several drones to finish off a target. Still, considering NATO-produced 155mm shells for Howitzers cost $4,000 each to produce, even several drones can represent a cost-effective solution. The range of these drones has forced the Russians to pull their valuable artillery targets far back behind the front line, severely limiting their offensive and defensive capabilities. Drones have become so important to Ukraine's approach to the war that the Ukrainian government has invested heavily in drone manufacturing, making between 1 and 1.5 million FPV drones in 2024. That's double the number of artillery shells supplied to Ukraine by its European allies in the same year. It's estimated that Ukraine will be able to produce 4 million drones in 2025. Russia has also been using drones throughout the conflict, though at the start of the war they focused their investment on expensive long-range drones designed to hit enemy targets hundreds of miles away. For example, when the war began, Russia bought hundreds of Shahed drones from Iran to use against Ukrainian targets. With a range of about 62 miles, they evaded defense systems more effectively than aircraft and cost less than the missiles Ukraine was initially using to take them down. The Shahed 136 flies a pre-programmed path, one with many twists and turns to confuse and exhaust Ukrainian air defenses. It also has a low radar signature and flies at low altitude to evade detection. It's used against bigger targets with a much larger payload than FVP drones, ranging between 30 and 50 kilograms. Each is estimated to cost around $100,000, and Russia has since built its own facility to produce the drones. Ukraine has also been developing long-range drones capable of delivering powerful payloads. For example, Ukraine now manufactures the Palyannitsia rocket drone, which can strike targets more than 430 miles away. It uses a turbojet engine for speed and a 20-kilogram warhead to maintain affordability. Ukraine has used its long-range drones to target a variety of targets behind Russia's lines, including Moscow's oil refinery, oil production facilities in the Ural region, industrial facilities in Kaluga, Rostov, and Voronezh, and the Savoslekia airbase. But because Russia focused on long-range large warhead drones at the start of the war, they've been slower to catch up to Ukraine when it comes to small drone production and deployment. And it's not just about the number of drones. Drone production in Ukraine is decentralized. A large number of private companies, volunteer groups, and even individual enthusiasts are actively designing, building, and iterating on FPV drone technology. This has led to rapid experimentation, diverse designs tailored to specific needs, and a faster pace of adaptation to evolving battlefield conditions and electronic warfare threats. Russia's drone production, including FPV drones, tends to be more centralized, often relying on state-owned enterprises or larger, more bureaucratic structures. This can lead to slower innovation cycles, less flexibility in design, and a potentially slower response to emerging threats and Ukrainian technological advancements. The top-down approach may stifle grassroots innovation and rapid deployment of new solutions. As a result, this means Ukraine has a more diverse range of drones in the air, and Russia's more uniform drones are easier to identify and target. Ukraine has also been more effective at integrating FPV drones with other battlefield technologies, such as artillery targeting systems and tank operations, with coordinates being entered in Kropeva, a digital map containing aggregated data on Russian targets. The real-time intelligence provided by FPV drones is being efficiently used to direct fire and coordinate maneuvers. With Russia's BTGs acting more independently, they have a less integrated way of sharing data gathered between units. The other main reason that Ukraine's drones have proven more effective than Russia's on the battlefield is that they have better adapted to electronic warfare, or EW systems. These are basically portable systems that are used to jam drone signals. They're often mounted on armored vehicles and accompany important assets to ensure they can't be identified by drones. Less powerful jammers are also sometimes used to protect troop positions, and there are even jamming guns that can be targeted directly at overhead drones when they come into visual range. When a drone signal is jammed, it will either drop to the ground or follow the last orders it received. If it continued flying, the controller would lose their visual signal. The EW system works by transmitting a high-power noise signal across a range of frequencies that the drone might be using to interfere with communication or navigation. However, it can usually only do this over a limited number of frequencies at any given time. Therefore, pilots can evade them by using uncommon frequencies or changing frequencies regularly. Again, the diversity of drones available to Ukraine has made them more effective in this approach. EW systems can sometimes trace the origins of drone signals, potentially targeting distant pilots. Both sides are getting around this problem using technology such as signal repeaters, which act as an intermediary between the pilot and the drone. As well as making it more difficult to trace the pilot, these can increase the range of a drone. Both sides are also developing drones with automated orders or with fiber optic controls that aren't affected by current jamming systems and automated frequency hopping. The next big innovation will be AI-powered drones that can act independently and don't require connection to a pilot. The innovation race is on. But despite the countless videos of drones destroying tanks in the Ukraine, tanks and other armored artillery units are still essential to the war. Tanks, accompanied by infantry, do what air power, missiles and drones can't do alone, which is seize and hold territory, and this is primarily a land war. However, due to the increased use of drones, ground artillery technology must also innovate. They tend to be easy to spot and slow moving, making them easy targets for drones. Tank and mobile artillery is another area where Russia started out strong, but is now falling behind Ukraine due to its technological innovation. While it's hard to get accurate numbers and reports vary wildly, it's estimated that Russia deployed around 3,000 tanks and other self-propelled artillery at the start of the war in Ukraine. That was more than 3 times as many armored units as Ukraine could call on in 2022, estimated at around 800 to 900 tanks. Russia probably had at least 10,000 more in storage. But Russia's tank losses have been extreme. Russia is estimated to have lost 2,619 tanks since the start of the invasion, including 1,725 destroyed, 145 damaged, 205 abandoned, and 544 lost. Moreover, while Russia could certainly field a lot of tanks at the start of the war, at least 3/4 of them were produced before 1980. When compared to more modern tanks and self-propelled artillery, they inevitably have a shorter range, less accurate targeting sensors, tend to take longer to deploy and longer to disembark, making them a sitting target for counterattack for several minutes. Former Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu boasted in December 2023 about the delivery of 1,530 tanks during the year, but didn't mention that 85% of these were not new, but older tanks pulled out of storage and refurbished. These include T-72s, T-62s, and T-55s, with the number indicating the year of production, with the newest tanks being T-90Ms, only 175 of which have been sent to the front line since the start of the invasion. The T-90Ms carry a 125mm 2A46 M5 smoothbore cannon, machine guns and guided missiles with a range of around 3 miles. Ukraine also has Soviet-era tanks, including the T-72 and T-80. But they've also received modern Western supplied tanks, including the Leopard 2, Challenger 2, and M1 Abrams. These modern tanks have a number of advantages over their older Soviet counterparts. For one thing, they predominantly have 120mm smoothbore cannons that are designed to fire highly advanced armor-piercing, fin-stabilizing discarding sabot rounds with super penetration capabilities against modern armor. The Leopard and the Abrams benefit from longer barrels, further increasing muzzle velocity and penetration. Russian tanks are primarily equipped with 100mm, 115mm or 125mm smoothbore cannons, while the 125mm guns can fire anti-tank guided missiles, offering longer range engagement. Their armor-piercing rounds often lag behind the penetration power of the latest Western 120mm ammunition. Ukraine's Western-sourced tanks also possess more sophisticated fire control systems, including advanced thermal imagers, allowing for better target acquisition and engagement in all weather conditions, and at night, more accurate laser rangefinders and sophisticated ballistic computers. These systems significantly increase the first hit probability. While the T-90M features better fire control than earlier models with thermal sights, the other tanks in the Russian battalion have more limited accuracy and engagement range, especially at night and in adverse weather. Ukraine's newer tanks also have stronger armor, incorporating materials such as ceramics, steel alloys, and in the case of the M1 Abrams, depleted uranium layers. This gives superior protection against both force and chemical weapons, plus modular armor allows for easier repair and upgrade. Russian tanks rely on steel armor, though enhanced with more modern relict in the case of the T-90M. This is less effective against armor-penetrating rounds than composite armor. The internal layout of some Russian tanks, particularly those with carousel autoloaders, has also been shown to be less survivable for the crew upon penetration, often leading to catastrophic ammunition explosions. Western tanks typically store ammunition in more heavily protected compartments, with blow-off panels designed to vent explosions outwards, increasing crew survivability. What's also made a significant difference to Ukraine alongside their battalion of tanks is the deployment of Caesar armed vehicles they've received from France. A modern self-propelled artillery vehicle, it was first deployed in Afghanistan in 2009 and has been a staple of the French army since. It's a 6x6 armoured vehicle built on a Renault Sherpa 5 military transport chassis, modified with an armoured cab to protect the crew of just 5 needed to operate it. The personnel transport bed has been removed and the truck platform modified to accommodate a powerful 155mm howitzer gun which can fire NATO standard shells. Using a sophisticated autonomous weapon network, it carries 18 rounds of munitions. Once given a target, the Caesar can fire 3 rapid rounds in less than 20 seconds and up to 6 rounds per minute. With an accelerated 3-round volley, the first round will hit its target up to 25 miles away while the third one is being loaded, allowing the crew to pack up and move on before the enemy has a chance to send up drones in search of the origin of the strike. It can move up to about 31 miles per hour off-road and up to 56 miles an hour on the road, which is much faster than the maximum speed of about 37 miles per hour of most tanks. Beyond its strategic capability, the Caesar is cost-effective, costing around $4 million per unit. This has allowed Ukraine to develop a significant battalion, with 78 Caesar units deployed between 2022 and 2024. Only 7 units have been reported lost in that time, demonstrating how good the Caesar is at evading counterattacks. As well as the Caesar, Ukraine has recently been deploying the even more sophisticated Swedish Archer artillery system. Also featuring a 6x6 chassis built on a robust Volvo A30D articulated dump truck, its cab is heavily fortified and the truck bed modified to carry a howitzer 155mm. It carries 21 complete preloaded rounds, which means they can be fired without the 3-man crew ever leaving the pressurized cab. It takes less than 30 seconds once the Archer commander receives a target to halt the vehicle, automatically position it for action and fire the last round. With a maximum firing range of about 18 miles using standard munitions and around 31 miles using special munitions, it can fire 9 rounds in less than 60 seconds. The Archer also automatically adjusts the angle for each round so that 6 rounds fired seconds apart will all land simultaneously. The Archer then only needs 20 seconds to pack up and be on the move. It's made even more difficult for drones to track by Barracuda multi-spectral camouflage netting designed to disrupt a range of sensors, including night vision devices and thermal cameras. Archer units are comparatively pricey at $13 million per unit, so only 8 have been deployed by Ukraine so far. But despite being a desirable target for drone reconnaissance and attacks, none have yet been lost, showing their effectiveness in Ukraine's drone-filled battlegrounds. While Russia has also deployed self-propelled howitzers, again, they just aren't as sophisticated and effective as those being used by Ukraine. Until recently, Russia has relied heavily on towed howitzers, which are significantly slower to deploy and displace, as evidenced by the fact that Russia is estimated to have lost more than 25,000 artillery systems since the start of the war. Consequently, Russia is now retrofitting towed howitzers to self-propelled vehicles. Russia also has some purpose-built self-propelled howitzers, including the 2S1 Gvozdika 122mm and the 2S3 Akatsiya 152mm, both of which have a much shorter range and lower rate of fire than the Caesar and the Archer. The 2S1 Gvozdika 122mm has been around since 1972 and has a conventional range of just about 9 miles and an extended range of around 12 miles. The 2S3 Akatsiya 152mm has been around since 1968 and has a conventional firing range of just about 11.5 miles and an extended firing range of about 15 miles. The war in Ukraine has starkly illustrated that in modern warfare, possessing a numerical advantage in resources such as munitions, manpower, or even older equipment is no longer a guarantee of success. Russia entered the conflict with significantly larger stockpiles of artillery shells, tanks, and a larger standing army than Ukraine. However, Ukraine's innovative adaptation and deployment of technology have allowed it to effectively counter Russia's quantitative superiority in many key areas. But it's also important to remember that innovation is about cycles. The speed at which adversaries detect gaps, innovate, produce, and deploy constantly impacts which side has the competitive advantage. The future remains uncertain. So what are your thoughts? Will Ukraine's drone innovation and superior tanks and mobile artillery prove to be deciding factors in the war? Or are we yet to see the technological innovation that will decide the outcome of this conflict? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to The Military Show for more up-to-date information about the war in Ukraine, the Middle East, and other conflict zones around the world.